but North Korea remains our most urgent security threat in the region.
The head of the U.S. Pacific Command says North Korea remains the main threat to the Asia-Pacific region. The head of the U.S. Pacific Command says that the United States has no plans for a limited attack on North Korea, but expressed doubts about the outcome of a proposed meeting between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Admiral Harry Harris told the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee Thursday that while what he called a range of options are being developed, he knows of no plans for a so-called bloody nose preemptive strike.
We have no bloody nose strategy. I don't know what that is. The press have run with it. I'm charged with developing for the National Command Authority a range of options through the spectrum of violence. And I'm ready to execute whatever the President and the National Command Authority directs me to do. But a bloody nose strategy is not contemplated.
Last week, President Donald Trump announced plans for a summit with Kim Jong-un, tentatively scheduled for some time in May. It would be the first such meeting between a sitting U.S. president and the leader of North Korea. Admiral Harris told the Senate committee that he was encouraged by the prospect of a summit, but said North Korea remains the biggest security threat to the East Asia and Pacific region.
We've never been in a position where our president has met with a leader of North Korea ever, and so I don't have a way to predict the future. I just think that we have to go into this eyes wide open.
Admiral Harris said he believes Kim Jong-un wants to reunify the Korean peninsula under his leadership and is using his nuclear program to gain respect, status, and security. The Trump administration has said it prefers a diplomatic solution to the North Korean crisis, but that all options remain on the table. Admiral Harris also told the committee that China's removal of presidential term limits could see its leader, Xi Jinping, stay in power for decades and was a harbinger of China's strategic threat to the region. Harris said that China seeks regional hegemony and wants to push the United States out. He said China's development of hypersonic glide weapons and stealth fighter jets pose a significant threat to the U.S. He also expressed concern about Beijing's militarization of islands it has built in the disputed South China Sea and its acquisition of icebreaker ships, even though it has no Arctic border.
But North Korea remains our most urgent security threat in the region. PACOM will continue to fully support the President's maximum pressure campaign and be ready to respond with our allies and partners to the full range of contingency scenarios. This past year has seen rapid and comprehensive improvement in North Korea's ballistic missile and nuclear capabilities, despite broad international condemnation and the imposition of additional United Nations Security Council resolutions. This includes the detonation of its largest nuclear device, first ever launches of 2 different intercontinental ballistic missiles, and 6 launches of an intermediate-range ballistic missile, all of which Pyongyang emphatically states will target the United States, including Guam. While some might dispute both the reliability and quantity of the North's strategic weapons, it is indisputable that KGU is rapidly closing the gap between rhetoric and capability. The Republic of Korea and Japan have been living under the shadow of North Korea's threats for years. Now that shadow looms over the American homeland. Meanwhile, China is leveraging military modernization, influence operations, and predatory economics to coerce neighboring countries to reorder the Indo-Pacific to their advantage. While some view China's actions in the East and South China Seas as opportunistic, I do not. I view them as coordinated, methodical, and strategic, using their military and economic power to erode their free and open international order. China's aggression in the South China Sea moves along unabated, despite the Permanent Court of Arbitration's tribunal ruling that invalidated China's 9-line claim on unprecedented land reclamation in 2016. And China is attempting to assert de facto sovereignty over disputed maritime features by further militarizing its man-made bases to this very day. China's impressive military buildup could soon challenge the United States across almost every domain. Key advancements include fielding significant improvements in missile systems, developing fifth-generation fighter capabilities, and growing the size and capability of the Chinese Navy, to include their first overseas base in the port of Djibouti. They are also heavily investing in the next wave of military technologies, including hypersonic missiles, advanced space and cyber capabilities, and artificial intelligence. If the U.S. does not keep pace, PACOM will struggle to compete with the People's Liberation Army on future battlefields. China's ongoing military buildup, advancement, and modernization are core elements of their strategy to supplant the United States as a security partner of choice for countries in the Indo-Pacific. China also holds global ambitions. But don't take my word for it, just listen to what China says itself. At the 19th Party Congress, President Xi stated that he wanted China to develop a world-class military and become the global leader in terms of composite national strength and international influence. Ladies and gentlemen, China's intent is crystal clear, and we ignore it at our peril. These types of aspirational goals could be appropriate for a nation of China's stature, but judging by China's regional behavior, I'm concerned China will now work to undermine the rules-based international order, not just in the Indo-Pacific, but on a global scale as China expands its presence in Central Asia, the Arctic, Africa, South America, and Europe. This increasingly competitive environment necessitates continued dialogue between the United States and China and our militaries to improve understanding and reduce risk. For PACOM, my goal remains to convince China that its best future comes from peaceful cooperation and meaningful participation in the current free and open international order and honoring its international commitments. After all, the Chinese economic miracle could not have happened without the rules-based order the region has long supported. But I've also been loud and clear that we won't allow the shared domains to be closed down unilaterally, so we'll cooperate where we can, but remain ready to confront where we must. Now on to Russia. Russian operations and engagements throughout the Indo-Pacific continue to rise, both to advance their own strategic interests and to undermine ours. Russia intends to impose additional costs on the U.S. whenever and wherever possible by playing the role of spoiler, especially with respect to North Korea. Russia also sees economic opportunities to not only build markets for energy exports, but also to build, or in some cases rebuild, arms sales relationships in the region. Of particular note are Russian efforts to build presence and influence in the high north. Russia has more bases north of the Arctic Circle than all other countries combined, and is building more with distinctly military capabilities. In the PACOM region, one event dominated the counterterrorism fight in 2017, the siege by ISIS of the Philippine city of Marawi and the city's recapture by Philippine security forces. This was symbolic of the largest struggle against violent extremism that we saw in Iraq, in Syria, and Africa, and now see in South and Southeast Asia. Marawi underscores two important themes with regard to defeating ISIS in the Indo-Pacific. First, localized threats can quickly transform into international causes. An early effective response is vital to control the fight and own the narrative. Second, counterterrorism operations are extremely challenging, and most regional forces are poorly equipped for such fights. Our engagement strategy and capacity-building efforts have remained and will continue to remain focused on enabling regional counterterrorism forces to win whatever fights they face. Through multinational collaboration, we can eliminate ISIS before it spreads further in the area. Every day, our allies and partners join us in addressing these global challenges to defend freedom, deter war, and maintain the rules which underwrite a free and open Indo-Pacific. These mutually beneficial alliances and partnerships provide a durable, asymmetric strategic advantage that no competitor or rival can match. In the Indo-Pacific, our alliance with Australia continues to anchor peace and stability in the region with increased collaboration in counterterrorism, space, cyber, integrated air and missile defense, and regional capacity building. Our alliance with South Korea is ironclad, and our alliance with Japan has never been stronger. The attack on Marawi City served as a reminder of the value of our alliance to Philippine security and stability, and we reinvigorated our alliance with Thailand through continued engagement with military leadership to promote regional security and healthy civil-military relations. We've also advanced our partnerships with India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, and many others who are dedicated to the principles of long-standing, customary international law. While U.S. interests in the Indo-Pacific are real and enduring, the growing challenges to our interests are equally real and cannot be overstated. In order to deter conflict initiated by revisionist powers, rogue states, and transnational threats, we must continue to develop, acquire, and field advanced capabilities. Our evolving force posture must decrease our vulnerabilities, increase our resilience, and reassure our allies and partners.